these grassroots efforts, the bombs were intercepted by the Israeli Defense Forces over our heads. Well, I thought, okay, the sirens stopped, and we went back into the cafe bookstore to continue the event. And I looked around, and many of the Muslims, Jews, and Christians that live in the area, it's like they're not used to having bombs fall in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. That's rather new. But they're so used to conflict, it was like, okay, let's move on. Let's forget about it. Let's just keep going. So we kind of all flowed into this interfaith dialogue, and which is chronicled in my book. Now, the book that just came out, the third edition, is called Love and Terror in the Middle East. Third edition, I'll talk to you, I'll share with you why it's special. What I actually do is I go into Israel and the West Bank, organize groups, Muslims, Jews, and Christians, and we dialogue. We just break the ice, because even though it's strange to a lot of people, they don't communicate with themselves. Really, they live in separate villages often. And even though Muslims, Jews, and Christians in the Holy Land and people of other faiths have been living there for years, they really don't communicate a lot. So a dialogue will go like this. I'll have a group about this size, and there'll be Muslims, Jews, and Christians, people of other faiths, and we won't talk about politics or religion. Gosh, no. No politics, no religion. Let's eat some hummus, like we have out in the corner there. Let's just go to the books. Let's go to the text here. So I'll take out my Koran, and I'll take out my Bible, and I say, look, let's compare a little bit. And, even though for some of you, maybe even most of you, we all know theoretically they're very similar. But where exactly does it say that in the Koran, that they believe in the same things that the Old Testament, in particular the Pentateuch, the Torah, and the New Testament says? Well, we just check it out. And say, well, they all believe in one God, helping the poor. They believe in thou shalt not kill, and treating your neighbors like yourself, or with respect. All of those principles and more are in the three texts. At the end of a couple hours or so, or sometimes I might bring in a belly dancer and it's Oriental music kind of distract them a little bit. And then when we start talking a little more seriously, then they'll have to leave us for a while, because we need to be focused now. I guess it's not just for the men guests that enjoy the belly dancing. I might ask the question. I'd say, look, what do you think? And I'll ask the Muslim this time. What do you think, Muhammad? Do you think you might share the same God? I mean, you said, you all believe in one God. Is it the same God? Well, now there's hesitation. About 2 hours before that, it was like, we believe in one God, but their God's not like my God. My God's better than yours. Your God, and this type of thing. Sometimes. Well, the Muslim's hesitating now. He's saying, well, we're so similar, it might be possible that we do share the same God. And I'll leave them with a final question. Does it make sense? And don't answer the question. I'll be back in 2 or 3 months. This is an ongoing dialogue. Does it make sense to kill in the name of God if you share the same God? Let's just, we'll talk about it later, and we'll be back in a few months. Now, I've been blessed to be able to do the dialogues. And after the bombs dropped in Tel Aviv, we'll go back to what happened a month ago, I went to Jerusalem to lead a freedom, what I call a freedom peace march, in the old city of Jerusalem. You know, where the Western Wall is, it's all there. The Western Wall is there, the Dome of the Rock is there, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Jesus carried the cross on the way to his crucifixion. It's all there in the old city. And many other common biblical moments took place there. Well, I've done this. I do it every year, at least 3 times a year. This is the first time I was leading one of these dialogue marches through that market in the old city, like the labyrinth of those markets in there, and they arrested me this time. And they arrested me, they interrogated, the Israeli police arrested me, interrogated me, and they said that they were going to maybe prosecute me, send me to jail, maybe deport me, which means I couldn't return after 10 years. I told them, look on my website, talk to the witnesses around. I'm not professing a violent revolution here. I focus on non-violent means for peace here. Why are you arresting me? It's the first time. And when Netanyahu, the prime minister, goes on international TV, he's always professing, which there's a lot of truth, that this is a very democratic country. but don't I have freedom of speech? So it got very blurred. The police commander said, yes, yes, but these are delicate times. It was during the truce between the Palestinians and the Israelis just a month ago. This is delicate times. You could cause a riot. And he said, the next time you show your face here without authorization, I'm going to bust you. I'm going to put you on a plane back to France where I live, and you'll never be able to return here in 10 years. If that's what you want, if I ever see you in the old city or anywhere in East Jerusalem, that's what I'm going to do. And I said, but whoa, if I were to ask authorization this time, if I could do this march dialogue, would you have granted it to me? And he said, no. And I said, okay, that's how that ended. So things are evolving there. But some of my friends, and we'll have another 5 minutes of my presentation, and I'd love to open this up for your comments and questions. Some of my, what we call freedom peace workers, have paid the ultimate price. And this is the whole goal of getting my publisher, who's a New York publisher, World Audience, CEO of Mike Strozier. World Audience has published this book, the third edition. The whole goal of this third edition that just came out a few months ago is to share what has happened to a good friend of mine. Over a year ago, a very important person in the Middle East. His name is Giuliano Mercamis. Giuliano Mercamis, famous Israeli actor, who with his mother Anna went into the refugee camp in Jenin. Jenin is the northern part of West Bank, one of the most contested places in the world, to establish a freedom theater. He was murdered over a year ago. And his mother's Jewish. He is Jewish. His father is a Christian Arab. He considered himself 100% Palestinian and 100% Jewish, was murdered. So what does this have to do with the book? Well, first of all, he inspired me. We worked together on these dialogue and marches. And I returned to the refugee camp. Many of my friends told me, you should wait until the dust settles. It's very hot, and people are belligerent now. The emotions are high. Tempers are short. Take some time. But on behalf of my friend, I felt it was necessary that I go there now to find out who would want to murder him. So I went to the refugee camp where he had his Freedom Theater, which was established with him and his mother, Arna, to find out what happened to him. Why anyone would want to kill him. He was the bridge. He was one of the ultimate, the epitome of interfaith, bridging Palestine with Israel, and someone killed him. Someone murdered him. I walked to where he was murdered. He was actually, they shot, I think, 5 bullets in the stomach while he was sitting next to his 6 to 7-month-old son and the nanny in the back of a car. I walked there to where he was murdered, right in front of the Freedom Theater while he was driving a car or driving out from the Freedom Theater. He was murdered there. And I spent time, I slept in the Freedom Theater. To this day, nobody knows who killed him. So I wrote the chapter about returning to the refugee camp and all the emotions that I was feeling returning to the Freedom Theater that my friend Giuliano Mercamis began with his mother Arna, and all the emotions surrounding my return and what it was like going to a place that had no leader, and all the fallout from his murder, and the people working with him were kind of running around with, confused. When you lose your leader, they were just kind of turning around and around like a dog chasing his or her tail. And that's how I left it. But I put the chapter in. It's very emotional, and it's the very last chapter in the book. And I will just read just a couple paragraphs, and then I'm opening this up to you. And so, one of the nights I slept in the Freedom Theater, that time I visited there, I had a dream. And before that dream, this is what it went. This is what I was feeling. I breathed in deeply and blew out, focusing on my surroundings. Slowly standing up, I shuffled to the back door where I felt for the light switch and flipped it on. I walked down the corridor. This is the Freedom Theater, right, where I was sleeping. To the back of the theater where Adnan had stashed my luggage. Pulling my sleeping bag out of my suitcase, I laid it on the floor and placed my blow-up pillow on it. I lay down without taking my clothes off, and I was out. That night, I dreamed. I was walking on the sand in a place shrouded in mist. It was so quiet. I could hear the crunch of each footstep as it settled into the sand. Each foot lifted, raining down grains of sand, grains of sand. The mist became heavier so that I could only see a few feet in front of me. And it suddenly lifted, and the vastness of the infinite sand spread in all directions. Nothing was visible on the farthest horizon, except a tiny grayish dot off to the right. I walked toward it. As I approached, the dot looked more like a jalabiya crowned by a pointed hood. It's like a robe, right? Closing in, I noticed in the black-white striped patterns on the enormous back of someone sitting in the sand with his legs crossed. I swung to the front and saw the face within the hood. It was Giuliano. His dark eyelashes were closed and hovered over a glimpse of his full lips. Ever so subtly, their corners stretched upwards into a faint smile, creasing the edges of his smooth olive skin. That's the end of the book. That's the new chapter, and that's why, fortunately, my publisher agreed to publish a new book and dedicating it to Giuliano Mercamus and other peace workers. So thank you for coming, and I'm glad you've been experienced this new edition with me and Blue Stockings. And Ernest Jackson here, my publicist, and all of you, thank you very much. And